say that in addition to your local rebates, you can access this fund for building a stronger local, and that the provincial executive is going to monitor the use of that fund. So this is in addition to what you get in local rebates, but now we also have the new small, medium-sized local supplement fund, and that's an additional $1,500 that locals can access if you have under 500 members in your local. So that's almost every single local that has access to that. So you have money that's already available. But this fund is very, very specific for creating some way to build strength or engagement or, improve communication, education, and maybe have a little bit of fun at the same time. So what we're really looking for in this fund is a plan that is going to provide some tangible and long-lasting result that will improve the union engagement with our members at the local level, okay? And then when the project is complete, the local will be better functioning than it was before. So again, in comparison to sort of your local rebates and the SMILES fund, the SMLS fund, those have less restrictions than this. So this is for building local strength. So in other words, that means this fund isn't supposed to be used for just having a barbecue or a party of some sort. Morale and having fun is a great way to make people feel better, and even shows some appreciation for their work. But frankly, that's the employer's job. They should be doing appreciation meetings. But what this particular fund is for building local strength. So we're going to be a lot more stringent on this fund, going forward, because there are the other funds that are available, your rebates and the SMILES fund. So those are subject to less spending guidelines. And just so you know, though, all three of these do require a motion at a meeting with quorum in order to be able to spend the money coming out of the local. So just to give you just a couple of ideas about what a local project can be, I just want to give you some examples. So the first one is Columbia View Lodge. And feel free, if anybody's from Columbia View that happens to be on the call, chime in, because this was a really cool project that they did pre-COVID. And what they did is they went around in the community and they got donations from local businesses. And so they had like swim passes and, like wine and, just various things from local businesses that donated to it. And like there was a spa pass as well or something like that. And part of that is because like local businesses love healthcare workers. So it is kind of a neat way for them to promote their business, but also support workers that they absolutely love. And I know locals that have been doing this since COVID, that they're actually even getting more engagement from local businesses. So they made up all of these baskets. They had a bunch of stuff from the community. And then they also purchased a bunch of HEU merchandise. So they had T-shirts and water bottles, all kinds of really, really neat things, like lanyards and pens and that sort of thing. And that was meant to not just bring the community to the members, but also, the more members that are wearing HEU merchandise, it shows, a lot of that camaraderie that everybody's, wearing the same T-shirts and showing their union pride through these T-shirts. But here's the trick. Okay. It wasn't just a matter of putting your name in a draw and winning. Because it has to build your local in some way. Now, this is fun, but what they did to build their local was the only way you can enter your name into a draw for one of these gift baskets was by answering questions about HEU. So they had these survey questions, and they had to navigate through the HEU website to find all of the answers. And they also added in the survey, this is my name, this is my contact information. So they had email and cell phone numbers, so that going forward, they were able to connect with members about when the local meetings were going to be, what's going to happen at the next local meeting, and other fun events that were coming up. So that's one really, really great idea, that they had a whole lot of fun. They had a barbecue at the end, and members loved it. And then here's another one that we did sort of like in the middle of COVID. So we ended up doing this outside in February. Yes, it was freezing cold, but it was hugely attended by a lot of members. And this at the time was a local that was really struggling. They didn't have folks that were willing to step up for the executive. They didn't have shop stewards. So we needed to do something to make sure that we could find people that would be willing to help with the local. So we set up the HEU tent, and we had several stations. So obviously there's 4 sides to this square tent. As members came out, the first station they would come to is they would sign up their name, their contact information. They'd get a lanyard, a pen, pins, a collective agreement, a constitution, whatever they wanted. They got all these little things at the first one. But it was initially, in order for you to get all the other things, we have to collect your contact information. And then you walk around the side. The next station was where we had folks that were explaining, what does it mean to be in a union? What does a shop steward do? What does an executive member do? What are the different positions? And people were really intrigued by finding out more about the union, and they literally signed up right then and there. And I think we got about 20 names out of that for people who were interested in being shop stewards. So going from, like 1 or 2 to having like 20 people, that was pretty impressive. Then they walked around to the 3rd station, and that's where they got their Krispy Kreme donut and their coffee. And then they walked around the other side, and they were able to enter into a draw for t-shirts and jackets and water bottles and all kinds of really great goodies. But wait, there's more. But then this was like in the middle of bargaining. So the bargaining conference had already happened, and we were starting actually at the table at this time. And so I was on the bargaining committee for the Facilities Bargaining Association. So I was off answering bargaining questions. So that was a real draw for people to come out, like, where are we at for bargaining? How does this work? And, and we had a lot of engagement around just bargaining. But then on the other side, we had reps that were there. They were answering questions about grievances, like collective agreement questions. What are their rights? That sort of thing. And it was a huge success. Members got a lot out of this, and we were able to get a functioning local simply from this one event. So this was great. I loved this particular, this one. And then here's another one. This is sort of like my favorite go-to type of process. Yeah, there we go. Nope. There it is. Perfect. So one thing that I did back when I was chair of my local, we did a local project that was all about member outreach. Now, I am from a large local, so it's merged local. We have 3 different collective agreements that we represent members in. And it goes from, like, it's central in Kamloops, goes all the way to Logan Lake, out to Chase, up to Barrier. And so it's a huge geographical area. And it has several different buildings, CMHA to Gaumont House to, a hospital to long-term care. So it's a very diverse group of people. And so what this project was is it included book off for me to travel around all the different sites. So I did 3
I
days.
got it.
Uh, we'll just get someone to mute Anna if we can. But what I did was I drove around the entire region, stopped in at every site. I would walk in, I would introduce myself to any worker that wasn't, that wasn't already engaged in something. I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm Barb Netterpole. I'm the chair of the local, just out talking to folks about the local and how to contact us. I handed them a collective agreement. I got their name, I got their phone number. We had an engagement. We talked about what mattered to them. And from that, doing this, and also I was also handed out like local bulletins, so there was bulletins about what's going on in the union, whether that was about bargaining or other things. I can't remember. This was a few years back. But I got contact information, made sure that every single site before I left there, that I had one contact person that was willing to, put stuff up on the union board and say, like, okay, if I email you the local meeting information, will you put it up? And I was able to get somebody at every single site to volunteer. So it was also really good for mapping my local. I was able to find out who are our members, where do they work, and then I had that contact information going forward. So that was really cool. So I did that once, but what I should have done is actually arranged to go back, maybe a second or even a third time, and just make that, get that contact with members on a go forward sort of basis, to make sure that they knew who I was, that I was somebody that they could trust and they can rely on. And that's what I would do next time if I were to do it again. So that's another really good example. But you can use this local project fund for like a lot of different things. One other example is for hybrid meetings. So the pandemic fund is expiring at the end of June. So that one, like if you want to hold hybrid meetings, but you don't have a microphone, or you need speakers, or you need a projection screen, whatever it is that can help you with hybrid meetings, this is one way that you can access funds to do that. You could do the red dress event. We have a toolkit online. We can provide you some resources specific to that. But if you want to do sort of a bigger project, you can make this, you can access money to do that through this fund. Same thing with the Care Can't Wait campaign. If you want to do that in the local and you want to sort of like make it a bigger deal, again, you can use this fund for that. You can use it for, doing a community event. There was a local in the Kootenays that, joined a parade. They had a float in the parade. And so they were able to, really advertise HEU. Farmers markets, that sort of thing. You could do a food bank drive, or you could do even like team building exercises for your local executive. There's really no limit as to what the fund can be used for. But again, at the end of it, you need to make sure that you are trying to make your local stronger, better in the long run. Okay, so I'm sure folks have heard of the term SMART goals, but this is, just a way to help you sort of organize the plan. So when you sit down with your application, which we'll show you in just a moment, it's really helpful to kind of have an idea about what is your plan and make sure that your goals are SMART. And the reason is because, we're spending members' dues. And I promise you, they do not want one penny of that wasted, right? So you want to make sure that what it is, your plan is a good investment for them. And they might have different ideas about what they think is a good way to spend money. So you really do need to spend some time thinking these things through, planning your SMART goals. And that starts with, sitting down with either your executive, maybe it's a working group, Maybe you're going to raise it at a local meeting. But what is it that your local is trying to achieve, right? What's the desired outcome? Is it that you're not getting quorum? Is it that there's bargaining coming up and you want to sort of organize around that? Is it that you just want to get contact information? Whatever it is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? That's your starting point. So the next thing you want to do is figure out what it is that you want to invest in. So what do you need to do to achieve that goal, right? So what is the plan? What is your budget for that plan? And then you're going to submit the application to the provincial office. And if approved, we will share the cost of that project with you. But just so you know, the local has to take on some of those costs. Okay, so you will be making a suggestion to the provincial office about how much you want the provincial office to contribute. But it's really important that the local members have buy-in and commitment from the local to do this project. And again, rebates are there for them to be used, not to sit in a bank, right? They're not doing you any favors for money to sit in a bank. So make sure you're using that money for local building. And this will help you, sort of cost share some of that. So again, going back to the SMART goals, you want to make sure that your goal is specific, right? So when you're listing your goals, that they have to be specific. So what is it you want to accomplish? What resources you require? What is it you want to achieve at the end of the day? Then you want to make sure that it's measurable, right? So you need to figure out what is success. If you do this project, what does success look like to you? Okay, so this is going to help you determine if you've reached that goal. So maybe the goal is something as simple as getting, contact information for 80% of your membership, right? Or maybe your measurable goal is that you have a full executive. So this is important that they're measurable. You also want to make sure it's achievable, right? Like it's great to have lofty goals. That's admirable. But it's also really important to ensure that they're realistic and achievable. And it's critical to determine if this objective is accessible to you. Does this make sense for you to be spending member dues on it? So the other thing is that you want to come out of this with a clear win, right? Something that you can brag about to your members or at a conference, like maybe a regional conference or at a table officers training. You want to be able to brag about how awesome this project was and take lots and lots and lots of photos that you can share with people so that people can see this was a good use of money. And this is something, this is an organization that I want to get more involved in because they're fun, they're doing good work, and look at how awesome this project went. You want to make sure it's relevant. So of course, when you're planning your SMART goals, those goals have to be relevant to the larger sort of purpose here. And I say that because, you want to make sure that you manage your time and resources on what matters. I mean, there's 1,000 different things that you can do to have fun. But if it's not relevant for sort of that long-term goals, you might be just doing a whole lot of extra work for no benefit. So make sure it's relevant. And then finally, timeline. It's important to plan your goals within a certain time frame. So after you define your goals and you run them through all of the different requirements, set a time when this is going to happen. And maybe this is a 2 or 3 part process, right? It might not be just one event. It might actually be 2 or 3 events. So, sorry, once you sit down and you kind of sort of think about this, you're going to want to sit with your working group or your executive or whoever's doing this. You're going to want to show, sit down with the application. So if we can just skip to the next slide, Tracy. There we go. Okay, I don't know if you can zoom in or not, but this is on the website. So the first thing that they're going to ask, obviously, is local contact information. But the first question is what is your local trying to achieve? So this is the outcome, right, of your SMART goals. What is the outcome that you expect to happen? The second question is, what is the actual project steps to achieve that goal, right? So if there's a few different goals, what are the actions that are going to apply to each goal? There's a question here around member contact information. Again, if at any time you have the opportunity to be contacting members, getting contact information from members, like getting their name, like an email address and cell phone number. If you can get that, this is a really great way to make sure, hey, Susie, I met you, at this event, I'm just following up, making sure that you had your questions answered, whatever it is. And then once you get that contact information, you reach out to them and you stay connected with your members. And it really should be a part of every plan. Like no matter what it is that you do, you should really think about gathering contact info. So the next thing is who is going to be involved and what role are they going to play? So this might be, like members of the local executive or, volunteers that are going to get involved. And then you want to talk about, what their role is in that. This might also include, guests. So there's a spot here for reps and there's a spot for like you can ask what provincial executive members you want to attend. But if you do that, you need to be really clear. What is their role, right? There's certain policies that we have to follow. So to make sure that, again, members' dues are going to be covered by policies, we need to know what their role is going to be before we will approve that. You want to guesstimate how many members might participate in this or be impacted. And what that does is it gives us a real scope of, how big this is so that we can understand sort of the budget requirements behind it. And then now on the new form, there's a section around your budget for the expenses. So it's, various different items there, but also what other items you might need that may not even have a cost attached to it. But we need to sort of make arrangements for it. Like, for example, each region has an HEU tent. So is that required for your event? We have like a spinning wheel that you can win prizes on. Is that something you want? That sort of thing. So then, you get your total budget all together and then you're going to suggest what it is that you want the provincial office to pay for. So, this is really just a guesstimate, sort of like gives us an idea about your expectations. But at the end of the day, what we consider is if you're a local that has a whole bunch of money in the bank, we're probably not going to fund as much as we would for a local that is like brand new or they have limited funds because they're a small or mid-sized local. So we will adjust from what it is that you ask for, depending on need. And we want to make sure that we're spreading the money out as much as we can for all the locals. And then it asks you, was the motion passed at a local meeting with quorum? Because again, to cover the locals portion of the event, or of the project, you need to make sure you have a motion for that at a meeting with quorum. And then it has to be signed by 2 officers. Okay, so, and then finally, we're almost done here. There's a few different things that you have to consider before we start. And I'm just going to pause because my laptop is about to die. Didn't realize I didn't plug it in. Sorry. Okay, so there's just a few some guidelines around this. We can go to the next slide, please, Tracy. So here's a couple of really important things because we want to do this. We want to give you money, but what you have to do is submit your application and get approval before you spend 1 penny. And that's like, it's just by policy, we can't pay for expenses that have already been incurred. You want to make sure that you submit your application as early as possible. So projects under $1,000 can easily be approved by Betty and I. But anything more than 1,000 that you're asking provincial office to pay more than 1,000, it has to go to the provincial executive for approval. So if we don't do a meeting for like 2 or 3 months, then potentially it might impact whether or not you'll be able to access the fund. So just so you know, we have a PE meeting next week. So if you can get an application before then, that's great. But the next meeting isn't until July, and then there's not one until the fall. So if you're thinking about doing an event for HEU Day, which is October 13th, for example, you might want to get that application in at the beginning of July so that we can take it to the PE. Once you get that approval from the provincial office, make sure you pass a motion at a local meeting with quorum to make sure you spend so you get approval to spend the locals portion of that expense. And then number 3 is that we cannot duplicate services. So that means we can't hold like educational sort of workshops at the local level if we're already offering them in other places. So for example, you wouldn't use this fund for shop steward training for your local members, right? If that's something that you want to do, talk to your rep about doing a needs-based training, but you wouldn't use this fund for that. And then at the end, please, you need to submit the receipts for reimbursement. But when you do that, we really want you to report on the project. How did it go? Send us pictures. We want to see and we want to hear from locals about what worked. And we want to hear you brag. Say how awesome you are, how fabulous this was, and what was the outcome of all of that. We love to hear your success stories. And we also want to make sure that, like going forward, that we can use your pictures in webinars like this or at table officers training, so we can brag about how awesome you were. So this is now available on the website. The application form is under member resources or local resources. I'll ask Tracy to put the link in the chat for us about where you can find the application. And it's really super easy. It is that easy. And so I'll stop there and take any questions, and I'm going to go to Tracy to help make sure that I do all the questions.